Hello, good morning, and welcome to another exciting time to talk about what's trending in the world of sports. It is Sports Central, brought to you live and exclusive to Spectrum Television, with a whole lot of topical issues to dissect this morning. Just like you had at the earliest part of the show, we brought to you some big details making rounds in the world of sports. Well, we're actually looking at the Wimbledon that's finally and gradually going to an end at the WTA category. We already found out which player will be facing who in the final that is slated later tomorrow, Saturday. And of course, at the ATP category, we're looking at who progresses to the finals as well. Well, of course, the conversation still surrounds the FIFA Club World Cup because the final is scheduled to take place later this Sunday, where Paris Saint-Germain, who are current title holders of the UEFA Champions League, would face Conference League title holders. Talk about Chelsea. We'll also look at a few transfers this morning as Tottenham Hotspur becomes one of the English top flight team that have made, of course, about two signings in the last 48 hours without more speculations that have actually swung into action, as we got some teams who speculate and at the end of it not being able to sign any of those players. I'm Mutube David, and of course I am super delighted to return right here to, of course, bring you updated with what's trending in the world of sports this morning. Fun also, of course, is here. Already talking about the early part of the show. Fun, good morning to you. We're back at it. Unfortunately, Bladden came is unavoidably absent once again. Good to have you.
Oh, good morning, UT. Good morning, listeners, watchers, viewers, whatever it is. Excited to be back on the show. We had lots of action, just like you mentioned. Tottenham Hotspur doing giant business. Gotten the man Mohamed Kudus, and in 24 hours after that particular deal, secured the signing of Morgan Gibbs White. Shows that the club is really heading towards a serious upcoming season in the Champions League. So you know they definitely need squad depth, because when you play in the Champions League, come back to play in the league, play in the Carabao Cup, playing the FA Cup, you can end up playing about 80 matches in a season. So you definitely need a large squad. And Daniel Levy understands that, given Thomas Frank the player he needs.
Well, the man Thomas Frank has actually assumed responsibility as Tottenham Hotspur's manager. I'm really looking forward to see the level of distraction, owing to the fact that they finish below the top 15 of the Premier League table. And now, with the fact that they won the UEFA Europa League last season, by virtue of that victory, they have now officially qualified for the Champions League. So it would be the Champions League on one end, the English Premier League and other cup games. Squad depth is quite a concern right here. But we'll go straight to football in no distant time. Let's begin the conversation this morning from the world of tennis, and it has to do with the Wimbledon. What's happening over there? Well, former world number one Iga Swiatek actually eased past Belinda Bencic and qualified to a first career Wimbledon final. If you can recall, yesterday we talked about Iga Swiatek not making it to the semi-finals of the Wimbledon before. In fact, of course, the final where he made, as at last month at the Bad Hamburg Open, was the first time we've actually seen her at the finals of the grass court event. Well, yes, she is back-to-back finals of the grass court event. This time around, a major tournament, as a matter of fact, in the world of tennis, and getting the battle of Belinda Bencic, a 6-2, 6-0 in the final four meeting on center court just yesterday. In a clash between two first-time Wimbledon semi-finals, Swiatek took just an hour and 2 minutes to get the better of Belinda Bencic. Well, from yesterday, we talked about Belinda Bencic returning from maternity leave. Usually not very easy for players who are returning from maternity leave to do better. But she was here, her very first time at the semi-final of the Wimbledon. And there were many concerns about Fiance going to the fact that both players are also debutant at this stage of a competition. But here they are. Ego Fiatek also showing quality and why she's from a world number one and now through to the finals of the Wimbledon. What kind of mark, or what do you see about Iga Swiatek? You look at her now being one of the favorites to get this particular title.
Oh, definitely. When you consider the fact that in the other semi-final, we had both number one crashing out of that particular, tournament. Arena Zabalenka, no longer in the tournament too. Swiatek opponents for the finals already been confirmed. And when you look at it, the one looks to see if Swiatek has more quality. But let's not get ahead of us. So let's talk about this particular semi-final, which is our discussion for today. Now, Igor Swiatek against Belinda Bencic, just like we talked about maternity leave, came back from maternity leave and reached the semi-finals of Wimbledon. That's a very big, deal for Belinda Bencic. But Belinda Bencic and Igor Swiatek, that was their very first semi-final of Wimbledon. So it shows you that these two ladies actually, gave a good account of themselves. Belinda Bencic beating 6-2, 6 love, but still, I feel she can, keep her head high up there, knowing that she can always return and try to fix the wrongs that occurred for her in this particular Wimbledon. For Igor Swiatek, I think she's done quite well. Before now, she's never reached the semi-final. She's never, gone as far as the semi-final of a grass court event. But she did that, a few weeks before the Wimbledon started in the Bad Homburg Open. Then had to do it now in the Wimbledon. Now she's reached the final. The question is, can she go all the way? Her next opponent has already been confirmed for her. So the question is, how possible is it for Igor Swiatek to go all the way and win the Wimbledon?
Possibilities of winning the first Wimbledon in her career. We're talking about a lady who's won, of course, about 4 Grand Slam singles titles. So that shows you the remarkable strides. By the way, she's also among one of the youngest players who have qualified, who was born in 2000s to qualify to the Wimbledon final. And that speaks volume of the lady Iga Swiatek even at the moment. Congratulations to her. Still talking about the Wimbledon, in the other semi-final game we saw, Amanda Anisimova. Well, this should actually be the biggest shockers of the tournament, owing to the fact that the most or the top seeded player of this particular competition was knocked out yesterday. I'm talking about current world number 1 in the WTA rankings, Belarusian Arina Zablenka. Well, at the point there were permutations about Swiatek at the other end facing Zablenka at the finals of the Wimbledon. But unfortunately, even Zablenka has not done pretty well at grass court event. Eventually made her way to the semi-finals for the first time as well, but was defeated by Amanda Anisimova in this particular game. It ended 6-4, 4-6, 6-4 in a game that spanned through 2 hours and, of course, 37 minutes. Well, of course, talk about number 13 seed, Amanda Anisimova. She actually kept score to ensure that she got the better of the lady Arina Zablenka. Now the result is Anisimova's 6th career top 5 win and first over reigning world number 1. 4 of those top 5 wins have come over Zablenka, who she now holds a 6 victory record and 3 losses in head-to-head series on every single surface. Well, this is not the very first time Amanda Anisimova have actually gotten the better of Zablenka. But to the shockers of many, because we also talk about intentions, ambitions of Zabalenka also making a record. But unfortunately, she was defeated yesterday. Is it a clear case of what we've seen all through the entirety of the tournament where top players were knocked out at the early stages? Or a clear case of the lady shifting focus in terms of attention to get the better of Amanda Anisimova?
Well, for Amanda Anisimova, yesterday when I went back and looked at the head-to-head record, I saw that it was at 5 wins for Anisimova. I was surprised because
it never crossed my mind.
Exactly, because if I just wanted to count the number of players who maybe have a number on Arena Sabalenka, I would just think maybe Igor Swiatek and maybe Cody Kukugov, because those are the 2 names that I know have beaten her in recent times. Actually, Amanda Anisimova had already beaten her 5 times. That was a really good, huge concern, and also taking cognizance of the fact that the Wimbledon is not Arena Sabalenka's biggest dominant run. So when you look at it, she was always going to face a tough test against Amanda Anisimova. And for Anisimova, she got that one over. She's beating Arena Sabalenka in all courts now. Talking about grass court, hard court, and clear court competitions now. So definitely, I think Arena Sabalenka would always be worried anytime she gets to face Amanda Anisimova. For Anisimova now, her next opponent is the lady Igor Swiatek, who's looking forward to winning something for herself. Igor Swiatek has not won a title since Roland Garros last year, so she's definitely hungry for something. Amanda Anisimova has won a few tour level competitions already, so maybe it's just going to be who is more hungry now for this, because look at Anisimova, 13th ranked US tennis star. Look at Igor Swiatek at the moment. She's looking forward to how to change that world number 1 before the ending of the WTA tour level event. So I would say it's set for a very good final. This is going to be the very first time they're meeting on pro level.
Absolutely.
Because last time they met each other, they were both juniors, amateurs, so that didn't count for. Igor Swiatek won that particular match. So this is the first time they're going to be meeting at pro level. So let's see what happens for both superstars at the end of it. I'm going to pitch my 10 biggest advantage for this particular one.
Well, can Igor Fiante win a first, of course, title of the year 2025? Is still a conversation right here. And just like you, Von Met mentioned, the last time she won a title was last year. And of course, that's a long period of time because the year was already into the half of it. And many expecting something very handy for these particular players. Talk about Amanda Nisimova, one of the best players on grass courts this particular year. She's gotten 12 victories and just 2 losses this year on grass court event. And that shows you how she's actually, of course, progressed. She reached the Queen's final just 4 weeks ago and made it through to the quarterfinals of the Berlin Open, another grass court event. So that's quite a good thing to look forward to. So now it's all set. The finals will be staged much later tomorrow. But let's quickly, of course, move away from the conversation. We'll talk more about it in the coming days as well and look at what's happening at the ATP category. Well, we hear that Novak Djokovic, who somehow is also, trying to manage some injury concerns, missed the practice session just yesterday ahead of the Wimbledon, of course, game against Yannick Sinner. It will definitely be quite a game to look forward to at the moment. He's currently former world number one, and he's also got history right here, one of the most successful players at the Wimbledon, of course, tournament. And we hear that the man cancelled his practice session just yesterday afternoon. He's actually a seven-time champion of this particular grass court event. So up next for him will be against the man Yannick Sinner much later today. Well, prior to the start of the show, I was actually having a discussion with Fun about his level of preparedness. If you are missing a practice session, what's the surety? What's the assurance of doing better against a top player? Talk about Yannick Sinner, the Italian, much later today. What does this actually signal? The fact that Novak Djokovic isn't ready or will be defeated in the semi-final clash against the Italian.
Well, when you're facing the world number one, you definitely need to be at your very best.
Mm.
Now, the man Novak Djokovic is injured, clearly injured after the last game, against Flavio Coboli.
Boli.
He fell, and I think it dislocated. They'll cancel the on-site practice for today, rather yesterday afternoon, which the match is later this evening.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for Djokovic, I think he still has time, or maybe can play through the pain. So maybe at the end of it, we'll just see Novak Djokovic coming out, maybe not really at his best level, but trust me, Yannick Sinner is always going to be at his best. So as a player, I'm looking forward to dethroning the world number one or beating the world number one. You definitely have to be at. Share my concerns definitely about Novak Djokovic, and I just hope that maybe he's at some let's say 60% or 70% because he needs to be at a particular level to match the intensity that Yannick Sinner will bring. Hopefully, he gets this one over the line.
Hopefully gets it over the line against current world number one, Yannick Sinner, the Italian. In the other game, we'll also see Taylor Fritz face Carlos Alcaraz, the Spanish international, against the United States of America international later today. So there have been permutations as well regarding this game. Some are looking forward to see the Italian, Yannick Sinner, face Carlos Alcaraz. That's if Alcaraz got the better of Taylor Fritz and Yannick Sinner gets the better of Novak Djokovic. All of those games is expected today. Mouth-watering games to look forward to as well. But let's also talk about other stories on the show this morning. It has to do with table tennis event. One of Africa's biggest name, as it has to do with table tennis, was also in action in the US Smash 5-game classic. Where the man too can talk about the man Harimoto, who's also quite a top-seeded player at the table tennis scene. The man is from Japan. Talk about Tomokazu Harimoto. According to reports we're getting, the man came from behind to win the whole setting round of 32 contests. He did a 3-2 in yet another chapter of their rivalry. While Rico Priot Harimoto always get the better of Rona Quadri, at least in the last 3-4 meetings both players have actually had. And the man, despite Rona Quadri leading at some point in the game, he came from behind to salvage this particular victory. The African number one recovered superbly in the second and third games, combining his explosive forehand with well-placed serves to win both by the same 18 to 11 margin, turning the match on its head and taking a 2-1 lead. But the quality of Harimoto, who is currently world number 4, showed why he remains one of the sport's most complete players. actually responding with clinical precision in the fourth game, pulling away from 8-8 to seal 11-8 and force a decider as well. Well, the man showing why he's currently world number 4. And of course, Haruna Quadri, some glimpse of brilliance, but couldn't just sustain it until the end of the game.
Well, I think for Aaron Rodgers, this is not a loss where you get to be so embarrassed. He gave a good account of himself. Won 2 games, won 2 sets in a particular match, 11-8, 11-8. So definitely something to look at. For Harry Moto, I think the deciding factor was that very first set where he defeated Aruna Quadri by 11 to 1. In fact, at a point it was 8 love, so you can understand what happened in that particular first set. So maybe Aruna Quadri early cheaters for the man, but definitely rebounded well. Won the second and third set, and the man had to had to win the last 2 sets to get that particular victory. So it shows that Aruna Quadri still belongs with the top echelon of players. I think maybe world number 20. He's currently world number 23. Maybe it's just due to the fact that the man has not been competed in lots of tournaments, or maybe because he gets to face in the early rounds, he gets to face the top 5 opponents. Because most times you see him get knocked out by the top 5 opponents. So at this point, I just feel then definitely he's currently maybe he should be ranked top 15, top 10 in the world because there's no other player that can do this what the man is doing. We've seen other players from Africa try to do that as well, but it's not always as good as Arono Quadri. So I would say Arono Quadri, maybe if this is the last year of his career, just like many sport pundit have postulated, then he's really giving us a very good last dance.
Well, the latest defeat now means Haruna have lost 5 of their 7 meetings, though it also remains one of the few players that have beaten Harimoto multiple times in the WTT circuit. Congratulations, Harimoto. Of course, for Haruna Quadri, an experience to build onto, and of course, try better in the next games to come. But let's quickly come back home and look at what's happening to a Nigerian national team. Talk about the female Yellow Greens of Nigeria, where we hear that the female Yellow Greens have actually stormed Benin Republic ahead of their World Cup qualifiers expected in no distant time. Well, they have been doing giant strides in invitational tournaments, of course, in the last couple of months. And here we are once again. We're looking forward to the ladies doing quite well. They are currently in a 14-day open camp at the High Performance Center in Benin Republic, that's the Benin City side, ahead of next month ICC Women's T20 World Cup Africa qualifiers in, of course, Namibia. Nigerian Cricket Federation has actually invited about 22 players to camp ahead of the Division 1 qualifier, which will be held from August 28th to the 7th day of August. Alexa Favor Isiegbe Salomi Sunday. Talk about Lucky PTR, regular names, regular faces around the female Yellow Green side. We expect the ladies to do well in Benin City as we're looking forward to the ICC World Cup qualifiers, which will definitely come up in a no distant time. Wishing the ladies all the best as we look forward to all of these as well. Well, we'll draw the curtains here on the first phase of the show. When we return, we'll talk more about football development and what to expect as we're gradually looking forward to the weekend filled with numerous actions. Talk about numerous actions. The WAFCON is still up and running, where the Super Falcons reigned supreme just yesterday. And of course, we're expecting a FIFA Club World Cup to also come alive. We'll talk about all of these after the short break. Do stay with us. Roll again, please. One more, then come to us.
On you.
All right. Welcome back. It is still Sports Central, of course, on Spectrum Vision. And I'm Mr. David. And Fun Itina is also right here. Together, we're doing justice to all of these fine stories making rounds in the world of sports. Well, moving ahead now, we're talking about football now extensively, and no better place to begin the football conversation from than home, where it had to do with the final phase of the NNL Super 8 playoffs. Well, 8 teams were divided into two different groups, 4 teams apiece in each groups, and of course, it was the last phase of the games as regards those group games, particularly. They also determine which of the teams have qualified to the NPFL. Recall that 4 teams were expected to qualify to the Nigeria Premier Football League. And fortunately, one manager who's been one of the most talked about in the NNL due to what he's been able to do in the last couple of years in the Nigerian Premier Football League have also gained qualification to the Nigeria Premier Football League and come next season. I'm talking about the man that has that particular pedigree of coaching over time. Coach Abdul Maikaba of Wiki Torres has guided the side back to the NPFL. Where we hear Warrior Wolves, the likes of Wiki Torres, Kun Khalifa FC, and Barrow FC have earned promotion to the NPFL following the conclusion of the group phase of the 2025 Nigeria National League Super 8 playoffs. So those 4 teams actually finished as the top 2 sides in Group A and Group B after 3 rounds of matches held in Delta State. And of course, by virtue of the fact that they are, of course, group winners and group runner-up, they have qualified to the Nigeria Premier Football Leagues and come next season. Well, I talk about Barrow FC. They are actually situated in Kano State. So next season, 2 Kano State teams will be participating in the Nigeria Premier Football League. Fun. It is all done now, and we're looking forward to the start of the MPFL next season.
Well, definitely, I think exciting times for Nigerian Premier Football League fans now, and knowing that the likes of Warrior Wolves and Wiki Tourists making a return after some, how would I call it now, hiatus from the
Absolutely.
MPFL. Warrior Wolves has been relegated for a long time, quite I think it's up to 5 years or thereabouts since Warrior Wolves got relegated, not being able to bounce back immediately. But finally, we've got Warrior Wolves back in the MPFL. And Wiki Tourists, just like you mentioned, Abdul Maikaba, a manager whose name would always be remembered in the MPFL scene. Talking about Kwara United, you're going to talk about Kwara United's success in the MPFL without talking about Abdul Maikaba, the manager who get from a team who was almost always competing for the top 4 places. So I think Abdul Maikaba is a good manager. Done it with Plateau United, done it with all some other teams scattered around the MPFL scene. And now this guy that Wiki Tourists back to the MPFL. I would say that's something really unprecedented, and I think the man deserves his flower. The MPFL,
Absolutely.
so definitely something to look forward to. Because when they look at the scene, I think newcomers in the MPFL always find a way of giving a good account of themselves. So Kempton Peter without continuing to go. In fact, Kingdom Osai was the which of Kun Kalifat or Barrow FC would give us a mouth-watering season. All in all, I'm just excited to see these 4 teams. And unfortunately, Aqua United joined the 4 teams who will be replacing them in the NNL. Let's see what is going to be an immediate promotion, or they would have to navigate the murky waters of the NNL.
Well, unfortunately, last season in the MPFL, the likes of Heartland FC, Aqua United, talk about Sunshine Stars and Lobby Stars were all relegated. Those are top teams who've got some pedigree and history as well as heritage in the MPFL, but unfortunately, they were bundled out and they have been relegated to the NNL. So, we'll be seeing those teams, those 4 teams in the NNL next season. I do not know how nice it would be to see a team as Lobby Stars, Sunshine Stars, and Aqua United in the Nigerian National League. But that's a sad reality. We have to make do with it at the moment. Congratulations to 4 teams, Warrior Wolves, Wiki Tourists, Kun Khalifat, and Barrow FC for, of course, getting promotion to the NPFL. But let's quickly look at WAFCON and what happened just yesterday at the WAFCON. It was the Super Falcons of Nigeria. Well, some will call them a wasteful side with so many chances came begging, couldn't just bury the ball at the back of the net. But finally, they saw and, of course, had breakthrough at some point in the game. A 1-0 victory for the side was enough to qualify to the quarterfinals of the Women's African Cup of Nations. It was a narrow victory, avoided a setback in a bid to reach the WAFCON group stage, or knockout stage rather, grinding out that 1-0 win over determined Botswana side, who some would say were defensively resolute, both by that dominant 3-0 performance where we saw in the first game. Just like Madugu said, we won't be blown away from the victory against Tunisia. But in the 87th minute, after several tries, Chiwendi Ihezu finally broke the deadlock, scoring the decisive goal that sealed Nigeria's place in the quarterfinals of the WAFCON. Here we are, fun. Of course, maybe not to a performance to be delighted about, but victory that many Nigerians were, of course, looking forward to. Because with this victory now, they have qualified with one game to spare.
Well, definitely the first team qualifying for the knockout stages of the WAFCON 2025. So something good for Nigerians. But at the end of it, I don't want to join millions of Nigerians who are definitely criticizing the Super Falcons for this particular match because the first half, I followed the first half. And the Botswana ladies definitely came with a purpose to get a draw against the Super Falcons. They never that first half, I can count the amount of times they passed the halfway line. It was always when they were clearing the ball. So it was almost as if they didn't even want to have anything to do with Chiamaka Nados here. And we had the Botswana keeper pulling serves upon serves upon serves upon serves. So it was just a matter of when Nigeria will be able to break the deadlock. For me, I'm not comfortable. I'm not comfortable with Justin Madugu. He waited, he dilly-dallied, and then at the end of it, we had to get just one goal, which was enough to send Nigeria to the knockout stages. I just want to hope he's learned his lesson. Maybe he should keep the two defensive midfielders for till we get to the knockout stage and get to face even stronger opponent. Because when you look at what Nigeria are capable of doing, I think we can do more than just defending using two defensive midfielders against lower ranked teams like the Botswana girls. For Chiwendu, here's what highest goal scorer for Nigeria this tournament so far. Scored one against Tunisia, now scored one again. But I think she still has a mountain to climb because the current goal scorer is a late captain of the Moroccan national team. 4 goals. We have another lady with the Senegalese national team. I think her name is Diop. 4 goals as well. Then Barbara Banda with 3 goals before we have the likes of Chiwendu here as well. But she is always on the bench. The lady did a number 19 jersey for Nigeria. Always on the bench for Nigeria.
As for the side that want to improve upon, as we're looking forward to the last game of the group phases of the Women's Africa Cup of Nations. Nigeria looking forward to making history. Of course, the habitats that have been pegged at, of course, number X, which is definitely looking forward to the 10th WAFCON title of the history of that particular competition. Well, let's quickly move away from that now and take a look at what's trending around the Super Eagles camp or Super Eagles team, as the case may be. We hear that Nigeria slipped to number 44th in the latest FIFA Men's World Rankings that was yesterday, and it is definitely their lowest ranking since June 2019 when they occupied the number 45th position globally. While, of course, on the continent of Africa, they have not been so much shift. As a matter of fact, it is just basically about the fact that Nigeria slipped one spot in race. And we're looking forward to what they do at the next games to come. Well, the picture is definitely, and that's where we'll be at the moment. The Flying Eagles of Nigeria got